Okay, welcome everyone. I'm just going to share this, make sure it's being shared on social media, and then we're going to get right into it. You could all share it if you guys want, and go on YJP Facebook page, and please like and share and comment. And if you love the speakers tonight, right? Yay. If you don't, whoops, I'm hearing myself on the thing. All right, amazing. So welcome everybody. It is incredible to have you back here for another YJP event. I can't believe we're back in Zoom. Really not right, not good. We should be live. We deliberately decided to initially make this a bit later on, thinking, hey, by the time we get to late August, we should be able to be live. But God has a master plan, and he decided that we should see each other virtually or see blank screen virtually. So you're all looking amazing. All the people that I can't see, you're definitely looking to a state of perfection. And the people that I could see, all the panelists. And Brian, welcome. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Hannah. True lady and gentlemen. So just to give you a bit of background how this wonderful evening came to be, my very dear friend and someone I have the honor and privilege of learning with every week, Reuben, who does incredible work, both privately in his business, but also as a volunteer to the Jewish community and specifically with Jewish Care, and runs an incredible organization, which he'll tell you about in terms of interest-free loans, tens of thousands of dollars they give out to help people set up businesses and establish themselves. And he said, we've got to get it out there. And I thought, one second, we were brainstorming, we said, what if we do an evening, which actually would allow people, giving them tips and advice on how to start up a business. Thus, tonight was born and created. So really appreciative of Reuben for being the brainchild, if you like, or brain man behind this incredible evening and putting together an incredible set of panelists who I'm not going to introduce because I'm not the MC tonight, but I just want to welcome you all, tell you that YGP is here for you. We love you. Reach out. Don't be shy. Anything we could do for you at any time, please reach out. I see Yossi is on board. That's doing an incredible job with YGP. Brian from YGP, my dear beautiful wife, Dina, Hannah. There's so many of us who are over here. Please reach out to us anytime because we are here to serve. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I'm going to introduce a wonderful MC, Ellie, who's going to take us away on this incredible journey of self-discovery tonight. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Thank you, Moishi. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Turning the Key, a fun-filled event where we will learn a lot tonight and take ourselves out of our day-to-day lockdown life. We're going to aim for about an hour tonight, so we'll do a bit of a Q&A, and then we're going to have time for Q&As at the end. If you've got any questions as we go, pop them in the chat. We'll try to get to them. If not, we'll get to them as part of the Q&A. We are also very lucky to have a special guest making an appearance at the end of tonight's panel. So stick around and you'll find out who that is in another hour or so. So I just wanted to introduce all of our panelists tonight. We have Reuben. Reuben, give us a wave.
Yes.
So Reuben is a financial planner with over 20 years of experience. He specialises in personal wealth advisory, including investment, super, wealth planning and life insurance. He's also got his own advisory practice, which he started about 10 years ago, and he's on the board of Jewish Care, and he's the chairman of Jewish Care's Empower Loans, which offers interest-free loans, and he'll talk about some of this a bit later. Next, we have Zoe. Shout out Zoe. Hi, Zoe.
Hi, everyone.
Zoe also happens to be a very good friend of mine. I told her I'm going to grill her a little bit here. So Zoe heads up the client services division at TAG, which is a full service digital agency, and her focus is very much on teaming and strategy, and she's been our guru in connecting traditional marketing and digital marketing. And before working at TAG, she also worked in sales at Channel 7. Next, we have Benny Berkowitz. Benny, where are you? Shout out. Yep. Hey, Benny. So Benny is our residence tax specialist, and he's advising on estate planning and asset protection. He's spent 18 years in the tax sector. He does not look that old, but he's spent 18 years in it. And his client list includes high net worth families, wealthy retirees, executives, and startups. He also started his own advisory firm in 2014, and he's a director of the Melbourne Jewish Charity Fund. And then myself, I'm Ellie Gurgiel. I've spent almost a decade working as a management consultant at PwC, and I've recently moved to MECCA to lead digital services, which is all things virtual and bringing the in-store experience to our customers online. Don't ask me how much I've spent on skincare products since I've started. It is a very slippery slope. All right, let's get into questions. So I've asked all our speakers to keep it brief, just so that we can move through as much of the content as we can. So first question is, where do you start when you're thinking about a startup, and how do you even go about launching one? What are some of the considerations, including financial considerations and marketing considerations? Zoe?
I mean, I would say think fast.
Mm-hmm.
And also that I think people think that if you do have a startup, it has to be unique. I don't think it does.
Mm-hmm.
It just, you have to be quick on your feet, and it's all about speed to market.
Excellent. Reuben? Where do you start?
So just taking a slightly different view, I think the first thing to do is think about is why you're doing it. And I guess the two reasons why we do anything is, one, either we're trying to get away from something, trying to get away from a current job or something that's not working, or moving to to something new and maybe looking for financial success or independence. So I think it's worthwhile really thinking about why you're doing it and making a list of that, and then so that later when things get tough, you can go back, and if certain things haven't worked, you can understand why you've done it. And I also think you should be looking at your current situation in the beginning as well, and seeing what could you possibly change or do where you are at the moment.
What do you mean by looking at your current situation?
Well, I think it's interesting with the whole employment and business world now that because of COVID, people have got a lot more independence in their own work as well. So this is a bit strange because we're talking about starting new businesses, but I do think that people have got a lot more autonomy now in different work arrangements as well. So I think it's always worth sort of looking and exploring, what you could potentially do within your current structure.
Yeah. What problem are you trying to solve for, essentially?
Yeah.
And Benny, how about yourself? Where do you start?
Yeah, well, I think building off what Reuben said is you start when you're ready to start. I think when you're employed, you have predictable income and it's safe, and you know how much you're going to earn, and you know when you're going to earn it. To go into starting your own business when everything is unpredictable and you're really taking a huge leap into the unknown. And anyone who's started a business themselves will say the hardest thing is just not knowing. That psychologically, it's very difficult. So I think you're going to wake up one morning just ready to do it, and you'll know when you're ready. But on top of that, another consideration is it's very likely you're going to have no income or very little income for the first 6 to 12 months. And you really do need to have savings set aside to enable you to really give it a proper shot.
Mm-hmm. And Benny, what was your biggest challenge? Because you've started your own business sort of 6-7 years ago. What did you find that hurdle to be?
Yeah, the unknown, going from a safe salary to going to virtually nothing, and coming into work every day and being motivated, not knowing if you're going to get paid that day. And that I found more difficult than any other aspect of the business.
Mm-hmm. And then so that's probably a good segue into my next question, which is how do you go about funding a startup? So what advice do you have for people looking at different funding options, and what are they?
Okay, so the most common options are debt or equities. Do you borrow money? Do you use your own money, or do you find an outside investor to invest in your business to help you start? And this is the kind of scenario where you'd go to an advisor like Reuben and say, this is how much money I've got to start the business. This is what I need to start the business. And he'd kind of formulate a plan where he could help you come up with a combination of options in order to get there. There are certain things that people aren't aware of. There are grants out there, private grants, government grants, and you really need to do your research, but those are the most common.
And Reuben, did you have anything to add to that? How do you fund a startup?
Yeah, well, I agree with Benny. It's either sort of put your own savings in or borrow money. And then when it comes to borrowing, there's a lot of different alternatives, but not everything is open to someone who's starting a business. So, usually the cheapest source of finance is if you have a property or something to borrow against. That's usually the cheapest source, but that's not always possible. And then you've got, other than that, so that's called secured debt. Then you've got other debt, which is called unsecured debt, which might be anything from credit cards or borrowing from the person who's, say, from someone who's like installing the equipment in your kitchen, for example, if that's what your business is, or there are online sort of finance companies as well. But it can be a bit challenging when you're starting without without an income to actually be able to prove your income, for loan purposes. And that's what we'll talk about, the Empower interest-free Jewish care loans. But also, like Benny said, I think you need to have a combination. I think sometimes it's important to have some savings and to not spend them all up front, because there'll always be sort of some out of expenses that you didn't realise. So you don't want to sort of put all your money into it and then just rely on borrowings. It's really important to have a combination.
Yeah, and Zoe, do you think you need money to start your own business? I mean, controversial question, but can you do a lot of this on your own, or what can you do on your own? And at what point do you think you actually need to start investing versus being creative and coming up with your own ways of doing things?
Well, yesterday actually, we started working with a startup in the makeup industry, actually, funnily enough. Her area of interest is in botanical ingredients. So she's been working on it for 3 years, all using her own money to finance the source of ingredients and bottles and packaging and everything. But she's kept a full-time job.
Wow.
And we spoke to her on her lunch break. There were a number of things that she was able to do on her own, but she got to a point where she doesn't know how to set up and she doesn't know how to run socials. She doesn't know how to set up Google ads. She doesn't know how to, you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, I need to talk to experts. So
Reuben, when do you call in the experts?
Yeah, well, I mean, the two things I think you really need to know is not necessarily the nuts and bolts of the marketing like Google, but you need to know what your sort of message is, or what your real value is, or what your and it's got to be authentic. So it's got to be about you. It doesn't have to be completely original. It doesn't have to be, but it needs to be authentic about you, and you can't outsource that. Once you know what that is, then you can bring someone to do the nuts and bolts. You can't outsource that. And the other thing that you can't outsource completely is the financials and knowing the numbers. I mean, you obviously get advice from an accountant, but you can't say, oh, I'm not a numbers, I'm not a finance person. You have to take time to really understand that.
And for someone who's not financially literate and doesn't have a background in the space, how could they get up to scratch very quickly on the numbers?
Yeah.
What's the best
Well,
way?
I mean, we'll talk about it later, but there's so many sort of resources out there. It's just obviously getting guidance from professional, but even before that as well, online, there's so many resources for small business startups, whether it's, at the federal or at the federal level, state or local, even the local councils run sort of training sessions. You can get free sort of mentoring. There's a huge amount available online if you spend the time doing the research, and you do that, and then you see a professional as well. And then when you go to the professional, you actually know what you're talking about, which I think is important. So you can't completely outsource that.
Ellie, anyone who starts up a business is going to go through a huge learning curve. Obviously, their job, they're good at what they do, but running a business is something generally people have never done before, and it's a completely new set of skills and new knowledge. So whoever does decide they want to start a new business needs to be aware that they're going to have to upskill, they're going to have to learn new things. There's going to be a lot of trial and error. But in terms of resources, in my opinion, the number one resource that any new business owner can find is a mentor.
That's really good point.
A mentor doesn't...
Do you have a mentor, Benny?
I've got a few mentors, but I'm sure pretty much everyone here has. But a mentor doesn't have to be someone who's run their own business. It doesn't have to be someone who's worked in that industry. It's just someone with life experience, because what you can learn through experience is more than you could ever read in a book. And if you read Shoe Dog, by the story of Phil Knight, who started Nike, he would spend at least an hour every night at the end of his day running a multi-billion-dollar company on the phone to his dad, just rehashing the day and brainstorming. And that was his mentor, and it helped him kind of identify issues and see things through a different perspective. The amount that, I benefited from a mentor in my early days, and I'm going to embarrass Reuben here, but in the first probably week or two when I started my business, I was 29 and I'd never spoken to Reuben before. I knew who he was, but I'd never met him before. And he picked up the phone, and Reuben and his late partner called me up and they said, would like to catch up with you for breakfast. And we caught up and Reuben just said, look, you're young, you're starting a business. I've done this before. Anything you need help with, any questions, any resources, just my number's open. And it was such a mantra thing to do, but he was just giving me some of his experience, and that's the greatest amount of knowledge you can obtain when you're trying to learn how to start a business.
Did he come good on the promise?
And then he never called me after that.
No, Reuben, but I'm saying that was the start of a nice friendship, you know, and it's
absolutely.
I still mention this to people today.
It's very nice of you to say that, Benny.
But you probably don't even remember.
I do remember meeting you, but I didn't think of it being
No, it was a nice thing.
I think that Benny, I think you underestimate how much guts that must have taken. A lot of people, I think a lot of women especially might not feel so comfortable calling out for a mentor. And I think those that are in a position of authority or who have the confidence need to seek out mentors for other people. So,
and Zoe, do you have mentors? Are you a mentor?
I have a mentor, and funnily enough, actually, someone called me today to mentor their new employees. So he was calling on behalf of people who haven't even started at his workplace. So they felt comfortable and someone to speak to that sits outside of his organization, which I thought showed a lot of respect to them, and that like he felt that he's not everything to everybody, because a manager can't be.
Yeah, and Reuben, how about yourself? Do you have some mentors that you look to for advice?
Yeah, well, I definitely did very early on in my career. Sort of late in the last few years, I've got sort of more colleagues that I sort of lean on. Being in business alone, I've got colleagues, and I've got people that are, I suppose, not necessarily business pure business related. Who I find as mentors as well, but it might not necessarily be exactly related to my work. So yeah. But definitely at the very beginning, I definitely had people who completely, influenced and, put me set me in the direction that I did.
Yeah. And there's mentors, and there's also a professional network. Yesterday I had a chat with someone. I was like, I just want to bounce some ideas around with you. He's a marketing guru, and I picked his brain for half an hour, and it was awesome. And I'll pay the favor forward. It's that kind of relationship that you have with people.
Yeah, that's right.
And so all three of you would have come across some fabulous businesses that have really succeeded, and some ones that have done not so well. So do you have any experience? Maybe we'll go first. Like, what have you seen people really mess up? Like, what should you not do?
Let's go first.
I'll go first. So I'll give you two examples of things that don't work. The first thing is not having a solid business plan in place that doesn't tie into an effective budget. So a business plan is a roadmap for the business. What does the business do? How's it going to make money? How much money does it need to make a profit? What's it going to do to make that money? And it clearly defines everything there. So someone that I've worked with in the past had, in the hospitality industry, spent nearly $100,000 in this startup business developing a novel product. And
what was the product? You can't just say a novel product.
It's not. It hasn't been released, so I can't actually say what the product is. It kind of halfway through, after about $100,000 of R&D expenses, they decided to completely pivot the business, and all of a sudden they turned into a delivery business. So the business is now operating in an industry that they have no competitive advantage. They have no insider knowledge, no experience, and they're falling foul to the bigger guys who do it much better. So a business that started out with one intention and moved to something completely different is obviously not going to work out because it's got no plan in place.
I will disagree. I know I'm a moderator, not a panelist, but I'll disagree with that because I don't know if anyone knows, but YouTube originally started off as a dating app, like a video dating app. And then they realized, like, hey, we're onto something with this video platform. What else could we do with it? And they pivoted. So that pivot, I think, can work. It just needs to be done in the right way at the right time.
Nothing wrong with the pivot, so long as it's incorporated into the plan and they've got a plan how they can utilize that pivot to become a viable business. So
with a plan.
didn't do that. Another issue that I've seen young businesses do, which is really unfortunate, is where the founders sell out part of their equity early days in order to raise working capital for the business. And what they tend to do is they give up a percentage of the company to raise a moderate amount of money while the business has got a low valuation, and then the business is successful and someone else.
Should you do that? Is that a good idea or bad? Don't do that.
Definitely don't do that.
Okay.
You ever watch Shark Tank?
Yeah.
That makes me cringe every time. These guys like take like 90% of people's business.
But a real life example is someone that I worked with started an allied health business, and in the first year needed $200,000 for working capital and sold 30% of the business to do that. And I begged him to go to the bank and keep 100% ownership. And he goes, no, I need the money, whatever. You know, within 2 years, revenue had increased tenfold. The company went national, and he recently went back to the purchaser of that 30% equity and bought it back, but it cost him many, many multiples of what he sold it for. And, you know, he was lucky he was able to get it back, but it would have been a much easier exercise if he just went to the bank and got that loan.
Well, the issue, I guess, is if someone's bringing connections and helping you scale significantly. Yeah. If that's the case, it's maybe worth taking them in, but they've got to bring something more than, as you say, this
was just cash, nothing else.
Yeah.
And so, Reuben, what about you? Yeah, what have you seen? What should people not do?
Well, I mean, I can maybe speak about one of my experiences. So I was running the financial planning business for a while, and the business that I run, it's very much an individual business, right? You deal with individuals, generally face to face. Now it's more Zoom, but it's very much a one-to-one relationship. So about 6 or 7 years ago, I thought, well, you know, I'm doing this face to face. I'm doing insurance. You know, why don't I just do it online as well? Like, just open up to a whole lot more people. And I spent like a lot of money on the marketing, and I sort of paid a lot to these designers, and we designed for different types of insurances, dogs. And so you'd have a dog like playing dead, that was for life insurance. So you'd have, you know, a dog with like a bandage on its head. So we spent a huge amount of money on that. And then, you know, put up a website and literally got no hits, nothing.
You should have come to me, Reuben.
Yeah, but what the point was is I completely underestimated the difference between what I was doing now to what that new business was. It was completely different, even though it was the same sort of industry, dealing with people online as opposed to a close personal relationship. You know, someone would come to your website and click off in 5 seconds if they didn't get what you wanted. So it was a failure of really and also not seeing what other competitors were out there as well. Competitors that were spending, you know, tens of millions of dollars on Google advertising.
Yeah.
But just underestimating this, and also just thinking, as I said, just thinking I had a great idea without really sort of testing the market. So I think that's the thing. So assuming that you've got a great idea without really testing it, getting third party guidance, is really important. So.
And Zoe, what do you think? What should you not do? Other than use a campaign with a variety of dogs in it? I mean, if anyone wants it. Reuben, is that idea up for grabs? Or
I'm still happy to sell that, actually.
Oh, okay.
I think the website exists somewhere. So
I'd like to see it, Reuben.
Yeah. Moshe, could you, Chabad, use that? He's on mute.
100%. We can use everything.
Well, when we work with startups, we work with a lot of them, we go through everything from competitor analysis to, you know, what's the objective here? And if they say sales straight away, we tell them straight away that it's not going to happen, because we need to educate the audience. Well, firstly, we need to find their audience, right? Then we need to educate them. We need to build their trust. We need to get them to the website. We need to get them to shop, like look around the website. And then ultimately we need to get them to buy from the website. And that takes a long time. We were working with a jewelry company, and they said very quickly, like we were working with them for a couple of months, and they said very quickly, you know, we want to go to Asia. We want to advertise in Asia. So I said, okay, well, you're going to need a big budget for that because there are a lot of people in Asia. It's not like advertising in Australia, right? Like it's a huge population size. And I mean, suffice to say that didn't go anywhere because like they weren't willing to spend the amount of money that it takes to advertise to that amount of people. And there was no appreciation for building trust with the consumer. You know, how many websites do you go on where you're like, oh, this looks like a dodgy website, right? You only buy from websites that you trust. So, you know, it takes on average like 7 to 9 touch points to get someone to convert as a customer. So that might take 3 months for that one customer. So it really is like slow and steady wins the race sounds
like you spend a lot of time managing your clients' expectations. You're good at this.
A lot. And the best ones are the ones that trust you. And I'm sure it sounds like the same with Reuben and Benny. There's a lot of trust involved. Like, you know, we want to support all of our clients, especially startups, but we don't want to lie to them. Like the worst thing to say is, yes, we're going to make you $1 million in the first year. Like it might happen, but probably won't, you know, like.
And so what about some success stories? We've heard a little bit about what not to do. Do any of you have any great stories you'd like to share and of what someone's done to build a successful business and what you think they've done really well?
I've got a client that's a doctor and a specialist, and he identified a gap in the hospital system. And he decided he was going to build a software platform to take advantage of that gap or that opportunity in the market. And being a doctor, he's very thorough and very organized. And he spent over a year doing this business plan. It was comprehensive. He did an extensive budget. So before the business took off, he knew exactly how much money it needed to start. It needed exactly how long everything was going to take. Everything was mapped out perfectly. And he was able to raise the money to get the product built. And he then went and had this software platform built. And then from the day it was released onto the market, he knew exactly how many customers he needed to sign up in order to break even. And then from that point in time, every single new customer was pure profit because it's tech and, you know, there's no added cost of adding new customers. And, you know, within a year of being released to the market, it's wildly profitable. Quarter on quarter growth is exponential, but it just comes back to having this beautifully clean and clear blueprint of what had to be done in order to get to where he wanted to get to.
Yeah.
And I can't stress that enough, how important that
the
is.
Business plan.
Yeah, I mean, where I've seen some real success is when you have, you know, a couple of partners come together. Or it could be a husband and wife, or it could be, there's one business I'm thinking of that it's 2 couples together. They're actually very good friends, but their combination of skills just works really well. You know, like you've got, you know, one of them is, you know, an incredible marketer. The other person is like really good operationally. You know, one of the other spouses is really good financially. So
they each have their core.
And you know, I mean, they don't, you know, obviously there's some overlap, but they know their roles really well. You know, when you get the right sort of chemistry in like a in a partnership like that, it's you know, it's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
But it's not always easy to know that up front.
Yeah. I also think something that's really important is to have the right people around you. That could mean staff, it could mean external advisors, it could mean mentors, and ultimately any business owner doesn't want to get stuck working in the business. They want to work on the business, but business owners are always time poor and they've always got more work than they can actually get done themselves. And having very clearly defined roles and responsibilities of people around them will enable them to move the business in the direction that they like.
The other thing is, I mean, we're always talking about big businesses. I mean, you know, it doesn't, you know, people, if they've got skills in a particular area, you know, having experience in the area is actually, you know, most likely the biggest determinant of success. So if you are a professional, you know, like Benny was, like I was, working for someone else, and then you go and start your own thing, I mean, that's that's usually a pretty good determinant of success. So having experience in the area, you know, does make a lot of sense.
It comes
And
down
Zoe, how about your Betty, go on?
I was just going to say, Reuben, it comes down to the law of attraction. If you do good work and you build relationships with people, the work will find you.
And Zoe, how about you? Do you have any success stories?
I mean, that and
share?
hustle, Benny.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like there is the law of attraction, but you need to hunt for it.
Yeah.
Ellie, was the question about success stories?
Yeah. What have you seen out there?
I mean, we work in digital marketing predominantly, and you know, majority of our business is on social. So we do a lot of work with influencers. I'm like waiting for everyone to roll their eyes here, but
name some names.
Yes, they work.
What do they charge? A lot. But you can work with micro influencers for like a couple of grand, and sometimes that will prove a better return on investment than working with a macro influencer who are charging, let's say, you know, I'm not talking about like the Kim Kardashians of the world. I'm talking about Australian influencers here who are charging, you know, 20 to 30,000 or something. And that would be for a prolonged project.
Sorry, Zoe, what are they charging to do? I don't understand.
For posting Twitter.
They're posting on Instagram, they're posting reels, stories, on-page content. They might become an ambassador for a while or for one particular piece of product.
So is it why you're working
Benny won't work for an accounting firm.
I'm just thinking, how hard is it to become an influencer? You know, it's a lot.
So how's it going for you? How's your influencer income stream coming along?
Honestly, I've actually considered it for myself.
If anyone's into a combination of children, cooking, and alcohol, that's probably where you're playing, right?
Yes, bingo.
It's actually interesting. You know, it's been Benny was saying about how well you plan out. You know, there's probably different types of people. There are some people that sort of fly by instinct. And can do really well like that, although if you look at those,
how do you know if you're one of those people?
Sorry,
how do you know if you're one of those people with great instinct?
I suppose because you make decisions in that way, but it is I mean, you can overanalyze things too much as well. You can ask too many people for opinion, and you can get into so you do have to limit it, and you have to make sure you're asking the right people for advice.
But that's why it's a lot of, I mean, on like in the digital world, it is about speed to market, because, you put it out there on social, you put it on their website, you put it, if you make a mistake, well, you just delete it and then re-upload, right? So
or you'll just get cancelled for the rest of your life.
Yeah, or you just get exactly. But the worst. The worst thing for us is when, for example, we're working on a list of influencers and we're giving it to our clients and we're saying, okay, here is our top 20, and they sit on it for so long because they're analysing whether or not this particular female is, more attractive than this female, or this person might have a better reach today or better engagement tomorrow, or whatever it is. But by the time they've made the decision, well, that influencer's out and the next one's coming in. So like in our line of work, you just have to, it's content marketing. You just got to get out there and get things moving and then learn from it.
Yeah, but confidence in making decisions as well, I think, is really, really important. So
but the first step is to make the decision.
Yeah, and if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. Yeah,
you get it wrong.
Fail fast.
Yeah.
So on that fail fast aspect of things, I know we've got Betty and Reuben, our two finance guys. What are some landmines? Like, where are some things people need to be really careful about? Betty, I know we spoke a little bit about how you structure things. How do you set yourself up for some success right at that outset?
So obviously the most important thing anyone can do is get proper tax advice, way more important than what Zoe and Reuben does.
I promise you this will just go for a minute. We're not going to go into tax here.
No. Just proper tax structuring right at the beginning. It's very expensive to change it down the track from a tax perspective. And getting it right at the beginning makes a big difference. It also means you might be eligible for concessions that you might not otherwise be eligible for. Also, structuring it properly gives you asset protection. If you work in an industry that has a higher risk of exposure to litigation, like building or something like that, you obviously want to make sure your private assets are protected against your business being sued. So that's in a 20-second elevator pitch.
Perfect. Reuben?
Yeah, so sorry, can you repeat the question?
You lost me at tax.
I know.
Yeah, Benny just took me in a different.
Yeah,
I'm
out.
the question again, Ellie?
Are there just any landmines or things
Yes,
that people
that's
need
right.
to watch out for early on in setting yourselves up for long-term success? Would be a
Yeah,
question.
so I think firstly, sometimes as they're getting too excited up front about the wrong sort of things, like when you're starting something and you think, I've got to get the perfect website, I've got to get the perfect, marketing thing. You can spend a lot of money doing that, which is not, and it takes you away from the real focus, but it's kind of the fun stuff. Obviously, having too much debt can be a problem as well.
What's too much debt?
Well, too much debt is basically debt that you can't service at the end of the day.
Like the Jewish school fees, like that, you mean?
Corporate mortgages.
When you're taking on debt, probably the most important thing is that the debt that you're taking on matches the matches the income stream or the asset that you're trying to generate, right? So, for example, this isn't a business example, but going on a holiday and then paying the debt off for 10 or 15 years is a really bad idea, right? But buying a house,
don't do that.
Whereas buying a house and paying off the debt for 25 years is fine. So if you're borrowing money to really, for a long-term thing that's going to help you generate business, whether it's a really important piece of equipment, that's really good. But if it's a short-term hit and you're just borrowing money for that, that can be problematic. And as I said, the other thing which I said before was, people just saying, they're not a financial person, not really focusing on the finances. It doesn't need to be that complex. You just need to understand that the simple drivers. And I don't necessarily believe in super long business plans either. Like I think, you do have to, particularly for a small business, you keep it simple, but you just need to know what those main drivers are.
And so, Reuben, I know you're dying to tell us about these Jewish Care Empower loans, because there are so many resources available for people wanting to start their own business. And Jewish Care has been wanting to make themselves available to support young entrepreneurs and people wanting to do their own thing. Are you able to tell everyone a little bit about what Jewish Care does, just for awareness sake?
Yeah, sure. So Jewish Care's got an interest-free loans program that was funded. It was funded by some large donors over the years. We're part of a network of international interest-free loans. It very much is, according to Rambam's principle of lending money to your fellow Jew without interest. So we have, a lot of people still don't know about it, but we have about $1.8 million lent out to about 280 people in the community. It actually was as high as 2.7 million, but it came back quite a bit during COVID. We lend money for, things, anything from like, buying a new fridge, new car, medical things you need to have done, trips overseas. But from a small business point of view, we lend money up to $25,000 for small business, either startups or expanding, and that could be anything from, depending on the, there's no doubt that most people here would know and have gone to businesses that have used us over the years, whether it's like one of the kosher dining places, or, it might be your tennis coach that's bought equipment.
What are you using these funds for?
Yeah, so it's just arranging. So it could be, if it's a service business, like we had a psychologist that basically wanted, starting their own work, wanted to set up some marketing. So, website and social media and all that sort of thing. Or then you've got people who need to buy equipment if it's a capital intensive thing. But the good thing about it is you don't need to have, we're talking about difficulties with debt. You don't need to have collateral behind you. And all you need to do is show an ability to repay it. And the ability to repay it may not necessarily be from the business itself. It might be, your spouse is working, or you're still doing some part-time work. So it's a fantastic thing. We want to, get it out there and help people more. It is a proper loan process. You do need to have guarantors, but we manage it very, very fairly and sensitively. So I really do encourage people to, to look up, Empower Industry Loans, Jewish Care.
And so if people want to find out more, hop onto the website,
Absolutely.
learn about it. And what about other resources?
And also, I should say, Khaya Rap or Khaya Barber. I'm never quite sure which is on the committee. I think Khaya might be on, certainly part of Moshi's community. So recently joined the committee.
Excellent. And Benny or Zoe, what else have you seen that's out there in terms of resources for people to help support them?
There's business.vic.gov.au, and they regularly have government grants for startup businesses. It's not constant and not everyone's eligible, but it's definitely worth looking at that. There's also a lot of private foundations that do provide things like interest-free loans or micro startup grants. It's worth doing the research there, but ultimately, you talk to your financial advisor, you talk to your networks and find out what other people have done. That's what I would do first.
Right. And Zoe?
Well, in terms of free resources, you could, if you wanted to get some support with marketing, you can always go through one of the unis and get like RMIT interns.
Are you about to offer your own personal email address to everyone just to hit you up for questions?
You can absolutely find me on LinkedIn. Go ahead. I've never said no to a coffee to anybody ever.
Yeah.
And in fact, you can find me at the wall on most days. But like if you're looking for like an ongoing free resource, then RMIT and other universities have like an intern program where they have to do a certain amount of hours for their degree. And if you find a really good marketing intern, then that's a good resource. Also, I would say, don't say you're too old for social media. Just have a look, immerse yourself.
Except for maybe our parents' generation who should
they have to understand
they should be on social media.
They have to understand it because that's where people play, especially now. People are spending 3 to 4 hours a day on social media. So they can't, people can't just say, oh, I'm too old for this stuff. Like, learn it, swipe.
We need to be on TikTok.
Yes.
Should I be on TikTok? Or?
Yes. It's the fastest growing app in Australia.
Oh.
So
yes,
you have to advertise on it. You have to get in amongst it. You don't have to dance though.
You have to scroll your phone like 10 hours a day as well. Is that
just don't be, I suppose don't be ignorant to it. That's all. And also, most marketing professionals, they choose the industry because they like talking to people and they like hearing about people. So hit up all of your marketing friends for advice because they'll more often than not, they'll say yes, and I definitely will.
Excellent. It's a commitment from Zoe right there. So I've got one more question for everyone. And then for all of those on the call, have a think about any questions you might have for our panelists. You can either pop them in the chat or you can, I don't know, can you ask to be unmuted? You can maybe also ask to be unmuted. We have Brian moderating this.
Pop them in the chat.
Pop them in the chat and I'll read them out for those who are a little bit camera shy or in pajamas or in bed. I'm wearing pajamas on my lower half. You just can't say that. All right, last question. Tips and tricks for those looking to start a business. Can each of you give me one of your, one or two tips?
Get the Instagram and Facebook handle.
All right, and for all those that don't know what that means, what does that mean?
It means like registering it, making sure you own it, plus registering like a domain name. Even if you don't think you'll use it, just have it.
Something. Yep, buy it. How do you buy it?
Like Crazy Domains.
Okay. Yep. Betty, what are your top tips?
I'll reflect on a quick story. In 2012, I don't know if it was YJP, but Rabbi Khan organized an event with Lindsay Fox at Caulfield Shul Hall where he spoke. And at the end of the event, I went and asked Lindsay and I said, look, I'm about to start a business with my partner, Keith. Can you give me your golden rule for success? And he told me that to take the milk bar approach, more money in the cash register at the end of the day than what's there at the beginning of the day. And then he went on to say that doesn't matter how good your business is or how many sales you make or how many customers you win, unless your business is cash flow positive, it will not be sustainable long term. And I've stuck to that rule religiously. I've told that to hundreds of people over the years, and for me, that's my golden rule in business.
Are there exceptions to that, or you just think that is just the way to do it?
There are times where you won't be cash flow positive. You know, you might need to hire new staff, or you might be going through a transition in the business. Yep. But ultimately, unless your business is making more than it's spending, it's not viable in the long term.
Mm. And Reuben, can you hit us with your tips?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably what we've covered a bit before, but I really think test the market and don't believe your own BS, because it's very easy to get really excited about an idea, and you really need to test, see what else is out there, look at competitors before you go out and do anything. And as I said before as well, don't overinvest in the fun stuff. Like get to the real heart of the matter.
Yeah. And Zoe, I've asked Zoe. I've asked her on their top tips.
Well, yeah, based on what Reuben was saying, interestingly, one of the main reasons why young businesses fail is they overcapitalize early days. They spend too much money getting carried away. And it's very easy to get yourself a fancy office with beautiful furniture and lease an expensive car in the business, but try to keep the business as lean as possible until it's profitable. And only then, when it can afford to cover these kind of things, that's when you start doing that. But try to keep it as lean as you can early days.
All right, questions. Hit us up. Moishi, can we put in a prize for the next question?
100%.
Excellent. Zoe, is Clubhouse dead?
Clubhouse launched in 2020, and it was an invite-only app, and it only worked on iOS. But it failed far. It's I don't think it's dead, but it's not a fast-growing app in Australia. So, but like Yehuda, if you want to stay on it, then like, happy for you.
It's a fairly specific question, Yehuda.
Yeah.
What could they do to correct their course? They have such potential. Is it
I mean, the issue is that like you went into a like a chat room where it wasn't really moderated. The subject matter was like finance for startups, for example. But then you had all of these people who had no idea about startups talking about startups and finance. So,
not at all like tonight. It's very different.
No, not at all like tonight. Exactly.
Next question.
Can I ask a question, Benny?
You can, absolutely, Moishi.
You spoke a lot about having a full plan detailed, and I know others said you don't need it as detailed. Someone who doesn't have that knowledge, I've got a great business idea, but I don't have the knowledge to write a detailed business plan. How does he go about it?
Yeah, there's plenty of people out there that do this professionally. So you could always pay an advisor to help you walk through one, but it doesn't have to be.
That contradicts your previous advice, not spending heavy before you have a business.
So this isn't a necessary cost for setting up the business, but ultimately a business plan doesn't need to be formalized. It just needs to outline what does your business do and how's it going to make money, and it just gives you the blueprints for what how your business is going to run. There's thousands of different templates that you could download online for these. You can find samples online, but I'd try and find one online. If you're on a budget, you could find a sample and start with that.
And I think, Benny, you've offered to review those, right?
Yeah, with pleasure. And Zoe's going to do marketing advice. Great. And I'll do this, and it's all good.
We're ready to go.
I mean, the other thing which I feel we haven't, touched on so much is there's obviously business and there's also self-employment. Now they are similar, but there is, it doesn't have to be about, building a massive business, making as much, hugely financially successful. There's a lot of other reasons to do it as well. The flexibility, the freedom, doing things the way you want as well. So I think it's important to bear in mind, as to those other objectives when you're starting out as well. So you don't just purely measure the success just purely on, the number of likes or, just purely on the bottom line. Because there's a lot of other reasons to do it as well.
Another question. We'll do another one or two more, and then we can move to our special guest, who I hope is on the line. Next question, YJP prize. It's going to be good. Something controversial. The other thing we could also do is a bit of a roulette. I might just pick someone out. I won't actually. Reuben, when is the finance hour making a comeback? Thank you, Izzy.
Thanks, Izzy. Look, it was a lot of fun. There's a lot of back issues of them. Like my family will be laughing at the moment. They're watching because apparently I was only going to do 1 or 2 shows, but I did about 80. But you can hear all the old ones, Izzy. I've done about 80 shows. So you can go onto my website or you can search a finance hour. And once you've listened to all 82 of them, let me know, and then I'll start doing the next one.
Is it like a good one to unwind and relax before bed at night, just when you're wanting to just really doze off? No?
Yeah, I know. Most of my friends said that they listened to it like on double speed, because I think that way they could get through it quicker, and at least tell me that they'd listen to it. Izzy, you've listened to all of them.
Massive fan. Well.
I hope my sons are on this.
And we have another question from Hannah for Zoe. So do influencers actually help sales? So Hannah knows someone starting a gin company. What influencer would you recommend? And so we don't say yourself.
Keen. Yes, I mean, yes, influencers do help. There's one example, the company who a well-known influencer spoke about their the product with unsolicited. And that night, that the marketing manager was was scrolling through her phone and realized that they were tagged in a story, and all of a sudden, overnight they had $12,000 worth of sales. That influencer has ended up becoming an ambassador for that brand. And in terms of what influencer I would suggest to use for a gin company, I would go with actually more of a content creator. People love to watch and view video content. So anyone that's like in the kitchen, Vanessa, I think her name is Vanessa Nguyen, is really
Jessica Nguyen. I'm across.
Oh, Jessica? Is it Jessica or Vanessa?
Yeah.
Jessica.
Yeah. Got the chili oil.
Yes. And also a very good focaccia recipe.
Yeah. So we've all made those.
Oh, you've all made them?
I've made all of it.
Oh, there you go. So she's got a really high engagement rate, and is also really, really big into her cocktails. So yeah. I rate her.
Hannah, I'll send you the details. Joshua S has asked, are there any tips on starting an online store?
Yes, build it on Shopify.
Why? What's Shopify for those out there at home?
It's like a website. It's like a website template where everything just works with everything else, and everything is integrated with like all the socials really well. And it's really quite user friendly.
And once you've scaled, is it still relevant, or you need to re-platform? That's my question.
No, you can upgrade it to like other versions of Shopify.
Anyone else have any tips on starting an online store?
I've got no idea. Just don't do what I did.
Betty's going to say business plan. All right. Next, from Ellie's iPad. iPad's a very interesting last name. Working in the business as opposed to on the business. What's the best way to transition from being self-employed to operating and managing a team? Benny, do you have a start?
I'll say something after.
Yeah. Look, I think if you're self-employed, you can only ever make as much money as what you can possibly do yourself. And once you have employees, you can make money off every single employee. And Steve Jobs always spoke about how he always believed in delegation, and he goes, you can always grow through delegation much faster than any other way. Ultimately, you want to surround yourself with smarter people than yourself and good workers, and your earnings will increase exponentially that way.
Yes.
So
and Benny, do you have a team now?
Yeah, I do.
When did you hire people?
Within a year.
Wow.
You know, when my partner Key and I set the business up, we didn't have a lot of work day one, so the higher staff would have put us into negative territory. And the truth is, we barely made any money that first year. But the second we started getting some good clients, we needed staff. You know, we realized there's only so many hours in the day, and if we were doing the work, we couldn't go out win work. So having staff has allowed us to do that.
The only thing I'd say on that is, you know, working on the business rather than the business has become one of these real catch cries of the last 10 or 15 years. But I've also seen situations where people end up, you know, taking such a big step back that they end up losing touch. And I think that's something to be careful with as well, because, you know, when you're a small business, you need to stay in touch. There's no, you know, if you just keep taking more and more steps back, I've seen businesses struggle because of that, because they've taken this working on the business just a little bit too, you know, to the extreme.
We've got two more questions. We've got time for both of them. So this is for Benny. What should one budget when getting advice in regards to structuring their affairs when setting up a business? Is it really that important?
I think it's very important.
Yeah.
If you don't do it right initially, it could cost you a lot more money down the track. But going to any tax lawyer or tax accountant and getting a structure put in place could cost you anywhere from $1,000 or $2,000 up to about $10,000 day one. But that could heavily outweigh or be outweighed by potential costs of not doing it properly. So
it's worthwhile doing that and doing it right at the start.
You get all your documentation done properly. You get what you pay for as well.
Yeah. And the last question from Tavia, are there any variables or key elements that you should consider when you're starting a service business versus a product business, particularly with finance and marketing?
Yeah, in the finance perspective, if you're starting a product-based business, you need to buy stock. So you're going to have somewhere to store that stock, depending on how large it is, but also it might have a certain shelf life, and you're going to have to pay for that initially. So you might not recover that money till that stock is fully sold, which could take 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. So all that needs to be factored in to a product business that you wouldn't factor in with a service business.
A service business, yeah, it's definitely easier to get off the ground because you don't have, that capital, the capital intensivity that you do with a sort of product, or even like starting a restaurant or something like that. But you obviously still need to have a good reason for people to come and see you and pay for your services. So you still need to have like a value proposition around that, or have a network of people that you know are going to support you. But it's definitely easier from a getting off the ground finance perspective.
Great. Max has snuck in one more question. Max has asked, what's the best way to set up a business to inspire and educate young Jewish professionals? This is a hard one, Max.
That's it.
I think let's defer this to Rabbi Khan.
That's
what I was going to say.
Good old handle.
I think you're doing this, aren't you?
Sorry, I was meditating. What was the question?
What's the best way to set up a business to inspire and educate young Jewish professionals?
The best way to set up a business is believe in God, have absolute faith, and then work. I don't want to use the word, but work your hardest you can. Have absolute faith, know it's going to be good, believe in yourself, believe that you could do it because we believe in you. Never doubt yourself, never second guess yourself. Every morning you've got a new opportunity for greatness. If you failed yesterday, you could massively succeed today. Believe it, dream it, implement it. That's all.
Well,
Good answer.
What a way to end that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
I was meditating on that answer. Sorry.
Yeah, you just were feeling it. Well, that concludes all of our formalities tonight. Thank you everyone for coming along. If you're zoomed out and you've been on the computer all day and you want to jump off, we understand. We hope you found this a useful event. But if you'd like to stay on, we have a bit of light entertainment, so stay on the line. So this is the moment everyone's been waiting for, our surprise special guest, who was a very late entrant into tonight's chat. Ellie Grimberg, can you unmute yourself? Now, I'm really not sure what to expect from Ellie tonight, so I'll just hand over to you, Ellie, if you're there.
Thank you, Ellie. And yeah, what a great discussion tonight. But look, any of you who've seen me on these things before know that I'm a bit critical of the safe questions, which I fear you've sort of worked in tonight. Victoria's going through some tough times. So I think it's time to ask some tough questions. So if there are any objections from anyone in the crowd, if you can just post a siren emoji in the chat. We can stop it there. We good? We're good. All right, here's how it's going to work. I'm going to go through the panel and I'm going to ask each of you 2 questions. One about your work life and one about your personal life.
I didn't sign up for this.
No, you didn't. You didn't. Anyway, we will start with our panel leader, Ellie Gurgiel from MECCA Cosmetica. You can unmute. She can't unmute.
No, Brian.
I'm good. I'm back.
Back.
All right.
Oh, great. All right. Ellie Gurgiel.
Hello,
It
Ellie.
must be great to work for a company that doesn't evaluate employees based solely on a pretty face, but also looks at their skin and their hair.
That's the question.
I mean, is it great?
Really great, because you can also bring skincare conversations into work conversations and it's completely acceptable. You can be like, oh, you're looking really glowy. What are you wearing today? I think it works well.
It seems like an appropriate workplace conversation.
Yeah.
All right. So hit me with your most embarrassing or shameful Netflix show you've been binging on during lockdown.
Josh is next to me. What do you think?
Fresh fried and crispy.
Oh yeah. We did one called Fresh Fried and Crispy, which takes you on a culinary journey around America with literally fresh food that's fried and it's crispy, and a guy just eating it with a lot of close-ups. We really got into that.
Just sounds like flicks, really.
It was amazing. I'm so glad that was my personal question. I was really scared of where you're going.
I was shitting myself.
All right, Benny Berkowitz, you run a boutique tax and accounting advisory practice. You must have a lot of boring work stories.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we do. You see the H&R Block commercial where they go, "We like tax." Yes, we've got a little bell we ring every time we lodge a tax return, and we do a bit of a dance, and it's exciting for us.
That's great. So who would you rather your daughter marry? Dan Andrews or someone who invests in Bitcoin?
Well, it's interesting. I am getting a lot of these random text messages to send my bank account details, and I'll get Bitcoin doubled sent in. So very entrepreneurial, but it's a hard question. I'm not a fan of Dan Andrews right now. I don't think many people here are.
Okay. Reuben.
Remember, you live across the road from me, Ellie. So
I used to.
Oh, you don't anymore?
No, I don't.
That's right, you moved.
No, we're out of the hood. So Reuben, you run a consulting business, meaning you give advice, is that right?
Yep.
So what advice would you give to someone looking to open a fancy kosher restaurant in Melbourne? I mean, is there such thing as making too much money?
Oh, look, I think it's a great idea to do it. There's an enormous market here, and Jewish people, especially religious people, don't have such high standards when they go for dining, and they're also willing to pay whatever it costs and won't ever question it. So I think it's a great business idea.
It's usually me who's offending everyone on the but welcome to the club. So look, we're getting close to footy finals, and I know you're a big footy fan. So who's a better performer on the big stage, Dustin Martin or Ricky Martin?
Yeah, well, I think I'll probably go for Dustin Martin because I'm a bit more of a football.
You're not living La Vida Loca.
No, it's a little bit old now. Is Ricky Martin still around? I mean, I don't think my kids would even have heard of him. So
he's still a vibe. He's still a vibe.
It's actually a bit embarrassing. It's almost like talking like about Rick Astley. So, you know, no, I would definitely go for Dusty, the three-time Norm Smith medalist. Although I reckon they gave him a couple just on his reputation. Basher Hawley definitely deserved one of them.
You might be right. All right, Zoe Goodhardt. Conversion rate, cost per impression, geo-targeting, engagement rate, dark social, ephemeral content. Zoe.
Yes.
Hand on heart.
Yeah.
Do these terms actually mean anything?
I think like 90% of them meant something. They do.
Is that on your LinkedIn profile or?
No.
You just Google those, Ellie.
I unfortunately was once in the business of pretending those words meant something. So glad to be out of it.
Come back to the dark side, Ellie.
My time will come. So Zoe, you work in a funky digital agency, so you get the power and the reach of the internet. So you probably understand that this panel is being streamed all over the globe, meaning every single person in the entire world is watching this right now.
Yes, I do.
Every single person.
Yep.
And that's a big platform for you.
Huge. So
what's your message to that young girl in Bangladesh who has dreams of working in digital marketing?
My message is
oh no, she doesn't speak English.
She doesn't speak English. Then I'd probably do a dance because that's what they all do.
I think we need to see
and then
this.
she can duet to me doing a dance on TikTok.
I would love to see that.
No
But I'm not sure Moishi's ready for that. So I'll thank all of you for your candor and honesty, and I'll hand over to Moishi now.
Thank you so much, really. Thank you to, I was going to say Ellie G, but then I realized you're both Ellie G, so that doesn't exactly work. But thank you, Ellie Greenberg. Thank you, Ellie Gurgiel. Thank you, Benny Berkowitz. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Reuben. Thank you to the whole YGFA team. You know, Yossi and Ricky, who are in the background, Brian, Hannah, Dina. Thank you to everyone that puts so much effort all the time into making YGP events. And to Benjamin, yeah, he's putting his face on the screen over there. Makes the best beer in Melbourne, by the way. What I really want to tell you guys is that we are here for you. There's events nonstop. Saturday night, Motzei Shabbat, there's event on. Sunday evening, there's an event on. Find us on Facebook. There's events literally all the time. Please get engaged. Please get involved. Please get inspired. And I really meant what I said before, by the way. I wasn't planning on being in any panel, but I meant believe in yourself because we believe in you. You guys are the best. We're all feeling a bit down, but look at this. Together tonight we had, by the way, at one stage close to 80 people here, plus we had on Facebook over 20. There was over 100 of us united as one family tonight. So just think about it. You're never alone. You're with the YGP family. So get yourself, everybody give yourself that virtual hug right now. Tonight, men and women could all hug. Look at that. Even the rabbi saying that. Hug over there. Give yourself the deepest hug. Know that you're loved. Know that you're appreciated. Know that you're valued. Know that you're treasured. And know that you are the best of the best. And have a great evening, great night, a great Shabbat. And we look forward to seeing you Saturday night at the next YGP event and again Sunday night at the next YGP event. Shana Tova to all of you. Anything you need, reach out.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Everyone. Bye.
Thank you.